All right, everybody, welcome back. We are here with Femi Longe, Global Bitcoin Lead at the Human Rights Foundation, Femi. And again, we're here at the MIT Freedom Tech and Bitcoin Expo. Femi, thank you so much for joining us.
We've been,
and just a disclaimer or disclosure to the audience, we've been talking for about 2 hours here, so we're quite warm. So I want to sort of share maybe recap some of the stuff that we were just touching on. Bitcoin perception, let's start there. People think about Bitcoin as different things. We have the Michael Saylors on one hand that try to assure the world that Bitcoin is just capital, it's not money, it's blah, blah, blah. Whereas I know with the work that you do with the Human Rights Foundation, people on the ground are using Bitcoin as money. This is what it was intended to be used for as per the title of the Bitcoin white paper. So can we talk a little bit about global Bitcoin perception, how different people see it based on your experience?
Yeah. When I think about the world, and when I think about human beings and humanity and how the world has evolved, a lot of the progress we've seen and civilization has been on the back of trade. You have something I need, I hand it to you, and in exchange, I give you money. So you have something I need, I give you money, you give me what you have.
Yeah.
And that perspective led to things like specializations. So not everyone needs to be a farmer to eat. Not everyone needs to be a blacksmith. Not everyone needs to be a shoemaker to have shoes. But it requires the ease and ability to be able to move value from one part of the world to the other. Now, while that may not be a major problem for people in the West, if an American needed to send money to their cousin in Australia, they need a PayPal link. They bring out their card, it goes.
At worst, maybe if it's a large amount, maybe a wire transfer that takes a day or two, but whatever.
Right?
Yeah,
it goes. If a Nigerian wanted to do the same thing, to send money from Nigeria to someone in Australia or in the US, the amount of mental calculations that you need to do is immense. Because first, you only have Naira, Nigerian currency. You can't convert it into US dollars at your bank because we don't have enough supply of that in the economy. If you're politically connected and you can get it from the bank, it would still take a good few days. And again, depending on the volumes, will determine how much scrutiny you get to what you want to do. Considering that this is money that you earned, that is yours, makes no sense.
Yep.
If you're not politically connected and you can get to the streets and get it from the black market, now you have physical cash. How do you send it from Nigeria to Australia? So moving value from one part of the world to the other part of the world is a real thing. And the beauty of the invention, Bitcoin, that allows people to move value from one part of the other world to the other part of the world without requiring an intermediary, without having to prove anything or discuss anything with anyone. Money that you earned by yourself, for me, is a phenomenal thing. To then watch, over time, conversations about that technology devolve down to buy it, the price will go up, you get rich.
Right.
And all the amount of nonsense that's wrapped around that makes me realize that lots of times we're probably not speaking at the level of need for most of the world. And the less we do, the longer it takes for global Bitcoin adoption to happen. It's a tool that human beings can use to solve all kinds of problems that they have. It's not a perfect tool. It's good for some things. It sucks for some things. Right. But if we can get to the stage where we can help individuals understand, first by understanding their problems, then helping them figure out how that technology can be used to solve their problems, then they have no incentive to come into it.
Yeah.
Trying to do it like a religion, appealing to emotions, or insults, or being part of it, like have fun staying poor.
Terrible.
or sounding like an irrational cult member doesn't inspire confidence in lots of people.
Yep.
Technology is strong, technology is improving. It can be through logic, and by helping people solve problems they have, we can get people to adopt it. But that would require that we change the way we approach the technology and how we get it to people.
Yeah. let's talk about that approach. You just said something quite beautiful. You said you're sort of skeptical a little bit of Bitcoin education, right? So you have a background as an educator. You did your master's in education, as you just told me. What's the best way to approach people? Let's just ask the question directly. In your mind and in your experience, when people are thinking about walking up to someone, they want to explain Bitcoin to them, jokingly, I think a lot of people launch into a lecture on Austrian economics or the blockchain or who was Satoshi Nakamoto, when in reality, like, these are just not very concrete, tangible things to people, nor do they really help someone. We don't go up to someone and describe how email works when we're trying to describe to them this is a way to send a message from one person to the other. But what should we be thinking about when we speak to someone about Bitcoin?
So I think the starting point is to focus on asking rather than telling.
Asking rather than telling. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you about Bitcoin. I want to understand what's going on in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to understand what challenges you're facing. And if there's a specific thing you're trying to solve for now, I want to be able to help you solve that problem. If there's a way for me to use Bitcoin to do it. And if Bitcoin is not the solution to it, then I don't propose Bitcoin as a solution to it. I always use the example of mobile phone, smartphones and apps.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask my mom if she has an app, she'll tell you no.
Meanwhile, she's got plenty of them on her phone. She just
If you ask her if she has WhatsApp, of course.
Yeah, right.
Nobody calls it an app
right.
to her.
Mm-hmm.
All she knows is I want to speak to my grandchildren. I whip up my phone. I go to WhatsApp.
Yep.
Now imagine if someone wanted to get her to use apps and they started with a lecture on the Android
versus
app
Apple
ecosystem and the iOS app ecosystem and what makes one superior to the other. You've lost her and engagement doesn't happen.
100%.
And that's what I see a lot of Bitcoin education as. Actually, I see a lot of it's almost sounding more like indoctrination and preaching, evangelizing a religion, as opposed to actually helping people solve problems they have. I believe utility is how we grow Bitcoin adoption.
Okay.
Human beings wake up in the morning. At every moment in your day, you have a touch point with money. Whether it is, how am I going to get to work? So I need to get an Uber.
Yep.
And I need to pay that driver. Or I need to stop for my coffee because I need the shot before I start the day. Or I need the newspaper. Or, I need to book that holiday, right? Or I need to pay for, there are multiple points in every human being's day where you interact with money.
Sure.
The more we can create solutions that leverage Bitcoin at each of those touch points, the easier it is for people to engage technology.
Yep.
But again, for the vast majority of the planet, we often assume that the vast majority of planets have a stash load of extra money that they can convert into this illiquid form.
Right.
And not touch for the next 5 years, stack sats and hodl, and the price will go up. And that's not the vast majority of this planet.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people on this planet are trying to figure out what they're going to eat tomorrow morning, or their family is going to eat tomorrow morning. So for them, it's not about converting their fiat into Bitcoin. They don't even have fiat in the first place. Right. And so the more we can create opportunities for them to earn their living in Bitcoin and spend to improve their quality of life, because the purpose of having money is not to keep it in a vault forever. The purpose of money is to purchase the things that give you a good quality of life.
100%, yeah.
And the more opportunities we can create for people to do that in Bitcoin, opportunities to earn Bitcoin, opportunities to save Bitcoin, opportunities to spend Bitcoin seamlessly without friction, the more people will use technology.
Yeah. On that point, what we were talking about earlier, you were talking about potentially a site like Fiverr or Upwork or something like this, adopting it. You thinking that these could be some of the most powerful drivers of adoption.
Absolutely.
Versus saying, I'm going to establish this physical economy in the real world, just a place where there's utility. I have this skill. There's somebody who wants to pay me for it. Doesn't matter where they are in the world, and I could click on a button that says I'll receive Bitcoin in response to receive this. If you could expand on that, I would love to hear more. Yeah.
The internet is an engine of scale. Long before we had the internet, what was the way for you to reach the largest audience? Maybe television.
Yeah, mass media, right.
Right? Before television, maybe you're in an amphitheater auditorium. Before that, it's you in a small market square and you can reach only a few people.
That's right, yeah.
The people that's a good influencer on social media is the amount of people they're reaching today is way beyond circulation of lots of TV outlets in the world. So the internet is a tool for scale. And if we've created magic internet, or if Satoshi's created magic internet
money, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to scale magic internet money in the way information scaled 500 years ago?
Why are we scaling it in person when we could be utilizing it? Oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. That's fascinating, yeah.
The internet is already there. And the internet, the beauty of if you think about, I mean, I first saw the internet in 1997 or 98. And the internet has evolved immensely since. But one of the biggest things that has driven the growth of the internet is the ability for regular human beings to earn their living using that technology.
Yeah.
Whether it is getting a job, whether it is working remote for someone, whether it is being an influencer or selling things or starting a business and using social media to promote it and fulfilling, or whether it is buying on Amazon, or whether it is putting your car on Airbnb, Uber, or renting out your apartment on Uber. The internet has been a tool for human beings to earn their living, to have a good quality of life. Question is, why is it that when they're earning on the internet, they actually the only option is to get paid in fiat and not in Bitcoin?
Do you feel like that's changing at all?
Not as fast as it should.
Okay.
And that for me is the actual potential driver for growth of this technology. In recent years, we've had something called the creator economy. You have platforms where people can teach the things that they know, from Teachable to Udemy to the likes. You have platforms where people can sell the skills that they have, from Upwork, Odesk, Fiverr, and co. You have platforms that people can use to leverage the items that they have as a means to earn, like their apartment or their car.
Airbnb, right? Yeah.
Right? Every single one of those platforms, or some of those platforms, having the opportunity for people to either buy services or pay for services and have the option of either paying in fiat or in Bitcoin, actually gives more people the opportunity to actually earn Bitcoin from the get-go. And why does that matter? Because that mindset that says you earn in fiat and then you convert to Bitcoin to save, we may think it centers Bitcoin, but it actually just centers fiat.
Totally, agreed, yeah.
Because people are not just earning the money for the money's sake. They're using the money for the hospital, to pay their rents, to buy food in the grocery stores. There's no reason why that entire chain from end to end can't happen in a Bitcoin standard. The only thing that is slowing it is in the mind of Bitcoiners.
So you think it's psychology?
It's psychology of Bitcoiners.
What about broader human psychology about not wanting to accept this thing because it's illegitimate, it's only for criminals, all the sort of narrative that often goes on around Bitcoin, if a person who's not paying attention has even heard of Bitcoin to begin with? I know now it's probably reached every corner of the earth, or many corners of the earth, let's say. Is there a broader psychology outside of the Bitcoin space that says, like, of course I'm not going to accept that, or not necessarily?
If it's your only option,
okay.
If you're pushed to the wall, you will. We work with human rights activists. If the government is hunting you down and you need to flee the country suddenly, and the only way you can take your assets out is to convert it into this liquid form. At that stage, the last thing on your mind is this is a technology for criminals. If your family member is about to die, someone's been beaten in the protest, and we need to pay for medical bills, or we need to pay for legal aid, and the only way you can do it, because you can't do it through the official channels, then conversations about, is this a technology for criminals? The truth is, technology in and of itself, like any tool, is neutral. I mean, the easiest, the oldest, maybe fire. Same technology heats up food.
Burns down a house.
Burns down a house. A hammer, you use it to build, but it can also kill someone.
Totally, yeah.
The internet, you use it for all the good things, but you can also use it for bad things.
Totally, yeah.
So Bitcoin in and of itself is neutral. But if the people in Bitcoin are obsessed about Bitcoin's value relative to fiat, which is the number go up obsession we have in the space, then they still want fiat around.
Could I play devil's advocate for a moment there?
Yes.
The number go up obsession. I'll disclose something about myself. So there were a few things that attracted me to Bitcoin right away. One of them was potentially getting out of student loan debt, which is a form of pain. And I think what you were just getting at with your previous statement is that oftentimes it will be pain that brings people to it, saying there's no other recourse, so I will use Bitcoin. Is that the way that you think most people end up learning about it? Will it be something that essentially forces them versus some sort of intellectual curiosity or some sort of like, oh, I could pay in dollars or Bitcoin, I guess I'll choose Bitcoin today? Is it sort of inevitable that the system, maybe an old system not working for them is what eventually brings them to Bitcoin, or not necessarily?
Yes.
Okay.
But the truth is the old system already doesn't work for the vast majority of this planet.
Yes, that's fair. Yeah.
And however, that said, the way we move them to this new system is not to sell them pipe dreams, which often that number obsession in Bitcoin, we end up selling them.
Yep.
I say there are people in Africa who are suffering from immense Bitcoin trauma.
Because they've gotten scammed, because they thought they were going to get rich and they didn't.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Because they bought Bitcoin at the high.
Right.
And they had short-term, which they always do, financial needs.
Yeah.
And they were forced to sell Bitcoin at a low.
Yep.
And as far as they're concerned, the guy who sold it to them told them the price only always
Goes up, right.
Whereas the excitement about the number, and we need to understand, Bitcoin itself is not volatile. It's actually fiat that is volatile in relation to Bitcoin. Because what we call volatility is volatility of the Bitcoin price versus the US dollars.
Yep.
One Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin.
Do you feel like sometimes if people are trying to put it into terms of maybe financial terms, that over a long enough time frame, I don't know, something else that's relatively scarce like property, saying like, okay, if you hold Bitcoin over a long period of time where you're using Bitcoin, buying a house will eventually become more affordable. Plus that also speaks to something that somebody might want. And I'm not saying that just in America or something like that, but is it better if you are going to try to contextualize it with something else?
Yes.
Okay.
However, I like the idea of saving. I hate the idea of conflating that this technology is just for holding and saving.
Got it. Right. Yeah.
The point of money is not to hoard. When I think about the hodling in Bitcoin, the image that always comes to my mind is, smog.
Smog. Yeah, like dirty air.
No, Smaug, S-M-A-U-G, the dragon from Lord of the Rings.
No, I'm not a Lord of the Rings.
Okay. So in the Lord
Please explain.
In the Lord of the Rings, there's this dragon called Smaug.
Okay.
Who lives in a cave surrounded by all this gold.
Okay.
And he hoards any precious metal.
Yeah.
And if you take one piece of it, it goes ballistic and it burns everything down.
Interesting. Huh.
Down the valley by the river from that dragon, there's a small village there where people are suffering in penury. Yet up the mountain is this dragon with all this gold.
Yep.
Human civilization thrived not by gold and money being hoarded, but by money and gold being used to trade for value. One person has something that is valuable, he gives you and you exchange. And it circulates within the economy and it actually circulates within the group and it creates what is the economy.
Yep.
The belief that the only point of this technology is for us to hoard it,
right.
For the price to go up while we continue to transact in this fiat world, centers the people and gives too much leverage to the people who have direct access to the money printer in the fiat world.
Correct, yeah. Because if we're just looking at it, so a popular term, pristine collateral, gets talked about as collateral a lot, something that you could borrow more fiat against, right? You're essentially continuing to empower one system.
Correct.
While your other system, okay, sure, it becomes maybe more liquid because people aren't selling in and out of it or something like that. When do you think that this dynamic shifts per se? Because, so let me contextualize that. What goes through my mind here is the US dollar inflates US debt increases by about $105,000 per second. I don't think the dollar sticks around forever.
For as long as Americans and Westerners influence a lot of popular perception and narrative in Bitcoin,
Okay.
the system stays around.
Got it. So purely from that psychological perspective, so long as they have people continue to think about it in a certain way. Okay, interesting.
Until, and the flip side of that, until voices in the rest of the world
Become more prominent?
demonstrate both in speaking, but by acting and building tools for people in the rest of the world to earn in this currency and spend in this currency, the current system persists.
Okay. Just that maybe as a final thought here, what are some tools that you're looking at? What are some tools maybe that HRF helps to fund? What tools exist out there that right now are sort of gaining pretty notable traction?
So HRF, we're very interested in certain properties of Bitcoin that makes it an amazing tool for human rights activists and people living under authoritarian regimes. So we like the decentralized nature of the technology. We like the privacy aspect of technology. We like the security aspect of the technology. But we're also interested in growing the usability so that it becomes something that you don't have to get a diploma to use.
Right.
The average person, my mom, can use it seamlessly, as easily as she uses her mobile phone and her apps. And so we're supporting technology like Cashew that help privacy, that brings the privacy level of privacy you have with physical cash.
Correct, yeah.
But on Bitcoin. We like tools like PayJoin that help you find ways in which you can
mix your coins.
Exactly, and
create privacy for yourself.
Exactly, make Bitcoin transactions more private. We like decentralization at every level, so we're supporting a few projects around decentralizing mining, for example, because we realize centralization of mining also starts putting risks.
No question.
In the system.
Yeah.
We like projects that improve the user experience of Bitcoin applications. We've recently supported the first ever and this, very quickly after the second UX, user experience bootcamp in the Bitcoin space, which involved both training you and onboarding UX designers, UX researchers, but also deploying them to actually test actual application that people use. We like private and secure ramps between Bitcoin and fiat. So we supported Tando in Kenya, which helps people transact from Bitcoin into M-Pesa. We supported Vexel.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Which is kind of like Tinder for peer-to-peer Bitcoin. You can use it to find people who want to exchange Bitcoin with you and then meet them to do that.
I would say it's comparable, maybe just for people listening. I'll get back to Tando in a second, but comparable to like the latest iteration of local Bitcoins. Local Bitcoins was a way where you could sort of say you want to, and I think it's an easier way to do that. It sort of draws from your contacts, and it's a really smart way to do that.
And while still preserving privacy.
Exactly,
which is a feature that we really like in it. We support a few Bitcoin educators. We support particularly the ones that are targeted at very specific demographics. So that it's not the indoctrination style of education, but you can find the demographic, understand the challenges that they face in that demographic, understand how Bitcoin can be used to help them address that. And if they're also a demographic that has a good platform, use that to also spread information around democracy and human rights and equality and the kind of things we believe in. So yeah, those are some projects.
I want to give a shout out to Bitcoin Data. I teach in one of those programs. So Bitcoin Data is a program specifically for African women. Number of use cases, and beyond that, what I love about that program is it also teaches women maybe certain skills or how to apply their skills so to get jobs and to earn in Bitcoin.
I mean, the beauty is the primary focus is financial empowerment for women, for African women, coming from an understanding of how financially repressed African women have been. And Bitcoin is just a convenient tool
for that. Correct. Yeah.
As opposed to centering Bitcoin. So what comes to the center now is not the technology or the solution, it's the problem for a specific people that we want to address.
Yeah.
And we like projects like that.
Yeah, amazing. And I did mention, or you were bringing up Tando, and we have a lot of other interfaces like this to shout them out because I think it's a really cool trend. So we have Tando, then we have SinPay, and what
We have
Bitcoin.
Spender in Ghana.
Yeah.
Bitspender in Ghana. We have Banksas in
Is that Portugal?
Senegal.
Senegal, yeah. And then I think there's one in, sorry, not Portugal, but Brazil as well. So yeah, these places where you can spend from your Bitcoin Lightning wallet and it interfaces with the traditional system. I want to leave it there. Femi, any final thoughts or anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I guess maybe just a reminder again that Bitcoin is a tool. It's not a religion. There are so many allies that we could bring into this mission if we didn't keep treating this thing like a cult and a religion. We can logically engage. We have the technology that's a sound that we can have logical engagement around. And like I said before, we can't come with the perspective of, I know and you're dumb, so let me come tell you.
Please
every
give that
human being is an expert in their own life and their own life circumstances. And being humble enough to actually try to know people and know their life circumstance is the best way to actually find a way to help them solve the things that they need to solve for, leveraging the tool where it is the right tool for them. And if that's the attitude that a lot of Bitcoiners have, I think we'd be in a better place.
Perfect place to leave it. Femi, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you guys all for watching. We'll talk next time.
Excellent.
Appreciate that.
I would think that was actually a really great impact too, without necessarily directly rehashing everything.